Good morning. Oh, good. Mic is working. All right. So, yeah, I'd like to start with a simple assertion, and it's one I think you all in this room will find no problems agreeing with. There it is up on the slides. To be human is to be creative. I certainly think we've seen ample demonstration of that so far this morning. Unlike batteries, creativity comes with the package. And we would have different ways of expressing this, different ways of tapping into it. And certainly an argument can be made, has been made, that as we grow up and as we're socialized, this creative capacity can diminish if it's not really actively developed and practiced. But at a fundamental level, whether it's through baking cakes or writing code, painting portraits or snapping selfies, architecting buildings or building businesses, this creativity is innate and it's inescapable. Indeed, it's this creativity that has certainly enabled the world around us with all of its beauty, its sophistication, and its capacity. There's no reason to expect that this creative force will not continue to do this and bring immeasurable, good, progressive, powerful things into the world. And yet, the sum of our creativity is not enough. It's not going to be enough to solve for the challenges that we create for ourselves and will continue to create as a natural course of our lives. It's not going to be enough to solve for the organizational, community, and ecosystem challenges that matter most. Now, there's hardly an occasion when a pithy, smart Einstein quote doesn't come to mind. And this is no exception. I think you'll be familiar with this when he says that it's going to take a new type of thinking in order for humankind to survive and advance to higher levels. Now, I would suggest that it's going to take more than just new types of thinking. It's going to take new types of creativity. And this brings me to the idea that I want to share and spread with you today. What if we could convene and bring groups of people together from a few dozen to several hundred and bring them into an environment and into a process that taps not just that individual creativity, but taps that emergent potential that can be tapped into through a collaborative, collective flow. And what if we could somehow channel this, could uncork it and direct it towards solving how do we design our organizations better? How do we unleash innovation? How do we better govern ourselves? How do we get at the core of these complex, wicked problems that none of us intended, and yet here they are? Now, this is something that I've been actively exploring and asking and experimenting with for about 22 years. And I believe it is not only possible, I believe it is essential. Now, one phrase for this type of mass creativity is group genius. Now, this has been the basis of a body of research, experimentation, and entrepreneurship from a community of facilitators, designers, and artists for at least the last 35 years. One of these people who's been involved in this, Gail Taylor, is who I believe is credited with first coming up with the phrase group genius. And she defined it as the ability of a group working iteratively and collaboratively to seek, model, and put into place higher order solutions. Time compression, a consistent flow state, dynamic feedback, individual and collective creativity are core features of this phenomenon. Now, today there are hundreds, thousands of individual practitioners out there and organizations, networks, communities, coalitions who in one way, shape, or form are pursuing this idea that there is a higher order creativity that can be tapped and can be used to address the challenges that we face. Now, in fact, a lot has been spoken about and written and even codified into methodology about how to tap into this. My hope is that as you, some point after you leave this theater, you'll seek this out and explore the body of knowledge that is out there and the people who are actively creating it. With my time today, aside from sharing what I hope comes across as a passion for this idea, I want to give you just a few of kind of the core principles or the conditions that I look for that I think are rather unusual and unspoken in this body of knowledge. That I think when you find yourself in a place of wanting to convene people together, to get work done, to change the world, to design a new system, I hope these come to mind and perhaps are helpful to you. Now first, as an emergent phenomenon, it's important to know that group genius can't be mandated or prescribed into a convening or a situation. As helpful as that would be, it would be nice if you just sprinkle a little group genius in there and it happens. Fortunately, that's not the case. But what we can do is we can create the conditions that will increase the likelihood that it will emerge. That we can, with a considered design, increase the likelihood that the interactions we are creating can produce a result that is qualitatively different and more powerful than the sum of the parts. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to speak about one condition I look for: requisite variety. I like to think of this as requisite creativity. Now, this is probably the most complex principle that I'll speak to today. There's actually a law of requisite variety. It comes from the system sciences, and it states that the larger the variety of actions available to a control system, the larger the variety of perturbations from the external environment that it is able to compensate for. So what does this have to do with convening a group and trying to get work done? Well, think of your control system as the sum knowledge, experience, vantage points, diversity of the group of people you are convening. You want to consider, is this sufficient? Is it requisite with the challenges and the complexities of the issues and of the systems that we're addressing? What are some ways you can go about assuring that you can get to the requisite creativity? First, think of the participants themselves. Is there a deep representation from all the different points in the system or the organization or the community you're working from? Is there diversity in the types of thinkers that you're bringing together? Philosophers, visionaries, poets, synthesizers, musicians, engineers, builders. What about wild cards? Often we think when we want to get an organization together, we just think internally. Who are the people from within that we need to bring together? I encourage you to think outside that circle and bring in wild cards. Folks who both through their knowledge and their naivety will challenge, complement, and add a type of thinking that doesn't exist if you invite simply folks who are internal. Now, you've got the participants together. You now need to consider, what is the perspective that I need to bring to this event? And it's really important here to think about, how do we get these participants untethered from their grasp on reality? How do we get them out of their egocentric viewpoint that we all bring into and all helps us get through our lives and make meaning for ourselves? But we want to expand that and have them bring in a larger systemic framework. Now, I have found that this is not as abstract or an academic experience as it may sound. With the age of the internet, not the least 1,500 plus TED Talks, I would argue that in 30 to 60 minutes, you can get individuals and groups thinking and dialoguing and understanding core principles of complex adaptive systems and having them bring that to bear on the work that they're doing. Whether you go out and you look at how the body works or how the brain works, or how do rainforests solve problems? What do coral reefs do about problems of waste and sustainability? Exploring these concepts can absolutely be made impactful and relevant to whatever issues that you are working. The third component of requisite creativity is the environment. You want an environment in which people can work big and get their ideas up around them and surround themselves in them. Too often, we each come into a space and we have our ideas and they're separate and they're on paper and we have tables and furniture that's nailed down to the floor and it can't be configured. Configurability is essential to be able to address to the task at hand. If we're brainstorming, if we're synthesizing, if we're doing detailed product work and trying to come up with engineering solutions, each of these demand different environments. If we're working individually, or in small groups or large groups, why should all of these things happen in the same type of environment? Static environments lead to static dialogue. Now, one of the best descriptions that a participant has offered to me in terms of an environment that I would consider requisite for unleashing group genius, called it a Montessori for adults. Now, I think Roz will appreciate that, and I think later on in the program, you'll probably hear a bit more about Montessori, and as you do, I want you to think back and go, how is this environment relevant to not just kids learning, but how do we create this environment for adults? And this is a good segue. Second, really important condition, embrace play. Play is where we're open to learning, to discovery, to risk-taking, to both collaboration and cooperation, as well as friendly competition. It is hands-on. It involves our intellect, our emotions, and our physical prowess. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm not suggesting that play is something that exists alongside the experience of designing change. It is the modality in which you do the hard work of designing change. How do you do this? Now, there are a number of really effective, simple ways that you can bring play into a convening. If you're looking at changing economic or social or organizational models, simulation and gamification offer a wide variety of options that you can get into. Creating, telling, and acting out stories are powerful ways of revealing the implicit philosophy and culture of the different life stages of an idea, an innovation, or a community. And one of my favorite ways is actually to have people build stuff. Build with materials, build three-dimensional and even four-dimensional models of the systems that they're exploring, whether they're systems as they exist today or systems as they envision them in the future. Now, these reveal not just all the critical parts and pieces of the system, but they reveal the relationships and the dynamics that are at play between them. They get people thinking actively with their hands and outside of their heads, and it produces a fundamentally different way of thinking about the issues and the problems that they're addressing. Incubate. You've had the play, you've generated a lot of great ideas, now you need to let it rest. You've played broadly, deeply, you've explored edges, be patient, and let people be out there to stew in their unconsciousness, to be uncomfortable, to say, well, where is this going? How is this going to get to the result that we want? I'm lost. I don't know where we're going. Perfect. Go home. Go to bed. Sleep on it. The word incubate, the Latin word of incubate, means to lie. And so I would suggest, in service to group genius, invite your participants to go lie down and sleep on it. And then the aha happens, the magic. The system is prepared to self-organize. You come back in the morning, and the ideas that you've explored through that intensive, iterative play, that mixing of ideas and perspectives, the ideas that are strong, that are relevant, that are resonant, will show up in the group. They come from the bottom up. And as a facilitator, you will just be trying to get out of the way and steward these ideas so that in a matter of hours, groups are able to step in action that is explosive and precise and accomplish in a few hours what typically takes days, weeks, even months. So, in my time doing this, I've worked in Africa and in China, in Europe, all over the US. I've helped mature organizations that are on the brink of death use this process to turn themselves around and recreate. I've worked with startups to help them accelerate their ideas and mature them and test them in ways that get them onto the market faster. I've seen companies take months out of the process that it takes to get prepared for an IPO. I've seen it take months out of the process that it takes to test an engine for an intercontinental jet aircraft. At the individual level, one of the most powerful things experiences I've had is when an executive came up at the end of the event and said, I realized in this event that the mental models I had of folks was not, my mental models was of who people were. And coming out, I understand my mental models need to be of who people are becoming. This subtle shift completely changed how he interacted with those around him. Now, in closing, I just want to offer that group genius is something that is available to you. Whether you're looking to change a global systemic paradigm, or whether you are simply looking to get more work done, to innovate faster, to accelerate learning. I invite you to step in and embrace group genius as a cause and a reason to help us escape to those higher levels that Einstein has told us about. Thank you.